Whoa, there we go. Um, they're very up. Most of their larynx quite tight. Their throats are quite narrow, and I think a lot of people just imagine because the sound itself is made. I mean, some people don't even know where the sound is made, and often I get people to just put their hands on their throats and experience the vibration of the fold. If you just did that, everybody, but if you just put your hands on your throats gently, don't strangle yourselves, relax your, and you just go, ah, taking a breath in, ah. Can you feel the vibration under your hands? And that's the physical, that's everybody's individual voice that's being made by that wonderful flow of the vocal folds that that Ava was talking about earlier today. And the journey when I'm working with people is to open them up to the idea of more space, that the sound, although it's emanating from the vocal folds, the space that our voices can resonate in is far larger, far bigger. And that identification that Gina was talking about, that rooted sense of self that occurs is this dropping down into lower and lower into our bodies. And I think that as people start to work with their breathing and make that journey down, time slows down because most of us are on a are on a kind of a scale of anxiety. I mean, it's the world we live in and what we've been through. And most of our responses to anxiety is a raising up, a breathing in, and an increased feeling of speed. And so often people come, they want to sing because they know instinctively they want to release and let that dam open, but they've been like this for so long, it's almost like they don't know they've got a belly, and the diaphragm is rock solid. And of course, from an embodied point of view of managing fear and trauma, these muscles, the diaphragm, the pelvic floor, the throat, and the fixed nature of the optic muscles, that intense stare that comes out of trauma and high anxiety. I had a picture of my dad just after the Second World War. Happened to find it, and it was like his eyes were popping out of his head. He'd been into such a high octane managing place that the eyes got really fixed. So when I start working with people, I'm encouraging them to start to begin to know that they've got these muscles and that they can consciously align with these muscles and encourage them to open up. The diaphragm, for example, is both conscious and unconscious. It doesn't stop moving when we go to sleep. And the great thing about it is that we can come into an alignment of our own bodies and go, hey, let's just open up here. So what I found, so once you've release the out breath, then the in breath is dropping down into the body. And what you're trying to do is encourage someone to reverse their state. They're coming in, I really would like to sing. I've got this voice inside me that I know. In my dreams, I hear this voice, and they can hardly breathe. And what you need to be able to do is to encourage their trust for them to slowly dare to let that drop, and for them to experience their breath can come into their chest and then down into their stomachs and then down into their bellies. And that journey is learning how to release the floor of the throat, the floor of the diaphragm, and the floor of the perineum, or the pelvic floor. And then once you've done that, I think you can then get them to let go of the mask, of the fixed eyes, muscles, and facial tension, to let that resonance in the sinuses and skull to let sound come out. And that journey is matched with an aspect of a part of the components which are, we call the timbres. So my take on it is that a musical note is comprised of many harmonics. And that's what makes acoustic music so different from electronic music, because acoustic music is all the harmonics are resonating in the room, and electronic doesn't have that breadth and stretch. And when I'm working with people to open up the voice, it's what I'm wanting is for them to experience their voices by knowing that they can breathe into their chest, by knowing that they can breathe into their stomachs, that they've actually got a connection to the stomach and a connection to the belly, and then this releasing of the optic muscles, that they can provide the space for the note, for their notes, for their voices to embrace all the harmonics that their sound can contain. And this is what I mean about space. So the connection with the breath is slowing down. And then the connection with the harmonics and the spaces that we can connect with in our bodies is with space. And then the orientation is this movement that's been going on all day, this convex and concave movement, this flow of reaching towards and pulling back away from, this vertical sense of being, whoa, I don't have any roots, to, there they are. And that assertion that Gina was talking about, that sense of I amness, that can occur when we really let these floors widen and open, and our sound can really fall and belong to that inner tube of our central core of our being. And so the movement, placing that into movement, starts to bring us into the space where we feel we can move forwards and move backwards, and we have this vertical connection with our sound and our voices. That's kind of it. That's what we're going to do. Hopefully. So the timbre, I don't know where to start with this really. I'll just demonstrate the sound because that's where we're going to be aiming for. And then I've got an addition. I've added one timbre, which I've located in the upper chest, because so many people come and they're up in the flute. And the first thing to do to enable them to come connected is to let their jaws open and let the sound go from a so a lot of people's larynxes and throat muscles quite contracted and tight, and they'll come and then you want to go why don't you just try that? Let's just try that, so that you know, people are always, it's very existential voice, you know. And someone comes so brave when people come and phone up and say, can I come and sing? And then they kind of stand there, you know, and they go, oh my God, I've got to sing. And there's like, you know, and you've got to go, it's all right. You can let the throat, you can let the jaw go. So just try and remember when you first came in. There's some beautiful voices here today. Just remember when you first came in and you had that, and it's here, and then you let it go. And then there's always that moment where you go, oh, that's nice. Whoa, I've got to go back. Just like, oh, that's far too exposing. And then the throat comes back, you know, and it's like you're working with that. So let's try and slow that down so that you're staying with here. You're raising up. And hey, we can do something here, it'll be great. So we're going to do a bit of breathing with this as well, which would be really lovely, because Caroline did a whole wonderful thing about nasal breathing this morning. So that what I'm going to ask you to do is to breathe in, slightly held face, slightly through your nose and through your mouth with a sense of a raised larynx. And then we're going to go down to the chest. And then you're going to breathe into your hands here in the chest. And then we're going to go from the chest back up to flute. And again, back down. And off you go in the heart. Back up to here. Take a break, take a stretch. So then coming down to the chest, and I call this the heart timbre because the sound's resonating in the heart. And there's three areas of breathing that you can focus on when you're working to enable people's bodies to begin to open up and find flexibility. So it's slightly deconstructive, but you put it all back together again afterwards. And so the heart sits in this upper chest breathing. A lot of people will breathe up here. So getting the sound to vibrate with the chest starts to bring, and I tell you what, there's some lovely yawns going on. It's going to make you want to yawn. So we're going to get to that timbre later, but you might as well just kind of get the road open. So don't do that. If they feel a yawn coming in fact, let's all do one, because stretching all the way up. Yeah. Oh, you needed to do that. Let's do that one again. Breathing in, stretch all the way up. Really, whoa, breathing in. Ah, lovely. Good. So, that's a beautiful yawn there, Alana. That is really great. So there's a heart. There's the song that sits in the heart, and it also connects with the breathing of the chest. And because a lot of people's diaphragms are tight, this movement, because the abdominis rectus is coming up from the rectus abdominis, coming up from the pubic bone. It's the six pack, and it comes all the way up and it inserts into the chest, into the, what's this called? I've forgotten what this is bloody called. Well, it'll do, chest bones. Somebody write it in.
Sternum.
What?
Sternum.
Sternum. That's your thing. So it's quite difficult for people to start to open the chest and then let the chest go into a concave because of this contraction that's going on in this meeting point of soft muscle and bone. And this area in the solar plexus can get very contracted. So when we're working with breath, we're working to encourage the pectoral muscles to open wide and for the upper chest to go into a convex. And then for on the out breath to explore that the chest can go further in. So that concave. And then I used to do one where you can breathe into the back and then come forward, breathing out, and then breathing in and breathing out. And you can feel, yeah. And it's a feeling that you are raising as well, so that what you want to do is start to get some flexibility in the joining of the muscle as it hits the bone, so that raising up and then letting it go down. So let's do a heart, just sitting for now, and I'm feeling this movement of the opening of the chest, and then notice any feelings that you have in this gesture. For me, that sense of generosity of the heart and that lovely moment of tenderness, when, that lovely, lovely little baby, so cute, and people go, and it's in that, and that's a kind of natural concave. And then how when butterfly wings, absolutely, let that fly, you feel, and it is of course flight, and you can experience the generosity and then the expansion, and then there's a place where, oh my God, that's gone a bit too far, and it's just coming back. It's learning what your parameters are. So it's a classic thing when you sing a song like I had a dream. And that lovely sense of hope and heart desire that is in that and then you bringing that back into the tenderness, ah. It's really, and it's amazing when you let yourself, there's this whole trick about give yourself up to it, surrender to it, surrender to the gesture, surrender to that moment that particular gesture gives you, and breathe into it, and then so that your body starts to give you the feelings, rather than you dictating how your body should feel. And it'll make you, it'll bring up emotion, it will really come through. So we're going to put these all together. So I'm going to take you into the next one. So the heart for me is it kind of sits in that lovely central place of the note. And then we're going to work down into a timbre. I'm going to change the vowel slightly, which helps to emphasize these medium lower harmonics that sit in what's called clarinet. And I call it solar plexus because that's where I feel it. And we go into the world. I don't know whether you're familiar with Georgian singing from Eastern Russia. And that, it's very vertical, it's very grounded, and it's very round. So I don't ask you to go straight into that because it takes a bit of open, you'll bust it throat. But you let the vowel and the sense of direction, so that this is very sagittal, and we're coming back here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the mid torso, and if you put your hands on your ribs, at the base of your ribs, so that you're encouraging the breath. Again, this is this journey down, encouraging the breath. And this is a deconstructed way into it, but it's not a bad thing for people to feel their bones. Bones are so grounding. It's our structure, it's our earth. And the ribs are remarkably flexible once you get them out of the lock. It's amazing how much. So the way that Paul introduced me to it was by placing your hands, so your thumbs, hang on, let me just demonstrate this. So your thumbs are behind and they're just sitting in one of the last, in between the ribs. Find a little place where you can feel the muscle in the intercostal, somewhere it feels comfortable to do. And then your hands are around. So then what you want to do is apply a little bit of pressure inwards. And then when you breathe, you want to breathe against that pressure. So you've got some resistance, and that roots you into widening the ribs. And then when you're breathing out, you're pressing against the ribs and you're actually pushing them back. They are remarkably flexible. Be careful, you don't want to snap a rib, but that's highly unlikely. So but enough to give yourself a bit of pressure. Watch that you're not clenching your teeth and trying to do the exercise with your shoulders, which I was doing some abductor exercise and I was trying to do it with my feet. Good God. So you're just breathing in. Feel the ribs going sideways. And then as you're breathing out, your hands go in. Can you feel that? Just give me a thumbs up if you can. Brilliant. Brilliant. So it's quite a nice stance. In fact, if you all stand up, it's a rather good, slightly feet slightly apart, and then this pressure getting you right into your middle torso, but relaxing your neck and going into a breathing in on an O. And then breathing out on a O. And then
Mel, can you show us from the back or from your
yes,
from the yeah.
I was just thinking that. So here we go. So it's you're breathing into the thumbs as well. So you get this three dimensional. So you're breathing in and breathing out. Can you see that? Chris, can you see that? Is that better? Brilliant.
Yes.
And this is really good because sometimes people come in and they're fixed here in the front top of their chest, trying to sing over this jammed chest. And having the thumb at the back of the ribs really encourages them to breathe back. It's what Ava was doing this earlier in the session. And then sideways and breathing. And it's very anchored, this feeling of body, bone, muscle, breath. I am here. And so is the sound. So that it's interesting, isn't it? Because the Georgians are very, if you watch them, they're terribly, oh, they're very men. So I'm not suggesting, no, I don't know where I'm going with that. Don't worry about that. I don't have a clue. So, so let's just very gently, keeping your hands and feeling that vertical, grounded heels on the floor, and then let your mouth go into this lovely you might want to go a little bit higher. I'll do it from the back as well. Now, one thing is really, really important, which I haven't mentioned, is this change. It's like what we're going to do in the breathing. It's like for a lot of people, we're changing the whole way people breathe and make sound, and we're turning it on its head. So so often we're self-editing, we're putting the cognitive on top of our expression, and that is heard when someone can you hear that? As soon as I know they've done that, I know that they've gone back into their heads. So the journey is to imagine as you're breathing in and as you're breathing out, the air is where all these muscles are supporting the diaphragms and the breath coming up out of our bodies and out into the world. And our voices ride on that breath. So I always encourage people before they make a sound is to just let a little bit of air out first. So it's the difference between oh and oh. So it's like the body provides the resonance rather than our mental effort. So just try that with me. So you're taking a breath in. How's that? Is that okay? Are you feeling that? Great, great. It's weird, isn't it, doing it on Zoom? So here we've got two timbres. We're moving between two timbres. The timbre that sits in the heart and that openness and that forward and backwards nature of the opening and the closing, the advance and the retreat of the upper body. And then the dropping down through the vertical line into this central solar plexus place of ground and verticality. So let's start with and then come down into your ribs. And breathing. That lovely image that Gina had of the flower opening and the stalk coming out the back. So sideways, and it's a front and back expansion. And then beginning to put it into a movement pattern. This vertical then moves forwards. And when I move forward into convex and concave, I keep both feet really grounded because that's the way I've done it. It just felt right for me. So that when I'm here, oh, and then when you're going to step forward, you just step forwards and you reach and then you open and your front knee's bent and your back heel is anchored on the ground. And then we're going to step back, and then we're going to come into the vertical, and then we'll breathe in. And then you just take one gorgeous breath in. Let's go. Lovely. All right, everybody? Okay? Good, good. So that's the two areas of breathing and connecting with two distinct resonances, harmonic resonances of our sound, from the middle central sound of the heart to the deepening harmonics of the solar plexus. And then the last one, it correlates also with the release of the abdominal muscles that encourage the diaphragm to flatten and open out. And here we're working to also release the perineum. Remember, that's one of the floors. So when we get really anxious and scared, our calf muscles tighten, our inner muscles draw the perineum up tight, and the diaphragm is held in a grip. So this belly breathing, it can be tricky for a lot of people because this feeling, this is the thing about turning it upside down, this feeling of letting the belly go and the air being drawn down into the body is so alien to a lot of people when they first do breath work and voice work. We've got bonfire night here, so fireworks are suddenly exploding all around me. So the way again, it's about deconstructing a little technique, but the way I learned it was that same thing about claiming awareness of muscles. So, if you're locked up here for a long time, you've lost connection to this lower part of your body. And a lot of voice and breathing is like recovering these connections to our embodiment. And one of the ways I felt worked for me to really start a conversation with my abdominis, my rectus, was to pull it in and breathing out, and to bring it in as tight as I could, a little bit like what Caroline was doing. And then let the jaw go, and then let the belly go, and the breath gets drawn down into the bottom of our bellies, because the release of the abdominis expands the lower rib cage, and the diaphragm flattens, and there's a vacuum in the lower lungs, and the air comes right down, and then you get this, oh, I'm down there, I got that far. So just take a breath in, then slowly pull the belly towards your spine, and take it a little tighter, and then let the jaw go, let your throat go, and let the belly go, and let the breath be breathed. And breathing out. And then let it be breathed. And breathing out. And then let it be breathed. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but can you see what I'm doing? Is that working for you? Can you feel that? Yeah, yeah, oh, brilliant. So, which I thought was really handy, because the last timbre sits in this belly, and the throat is so wide, and it is actually right on the edge of the yawn. Everybody have another yawn. And you hear how wide, and the larynx is dropped as low as it can. The tube is really wide. And it sits in the concave aspect of the movement pattern that I'm introducing you to. And that's handy because gravity, if you just let gravity take your belly and just let it drop, and then pull the belly towards your spine, and then just let it drop. It's a great way in. And it's also what it's doing is because the back is in convex, it's encouraging these muscles, the diaphragm, which is hooking into the fifth lumbar spine, and the muscles that connecting the pelvis to the spine have an opportunity to release as well. So that this is more breathing into the back. And you've got this. It's what you do when you throw up, isn't it? You kind of bend over. I'm sorry to be so graphic, but I just kind of remembered myself. And it's like that, that's what you do, isn't it? And it's because you've got to get everything out. So you just got to. But yawning is a nicer. So, how's that? Are you feeling that? Yeah, good. So then, for me, everything begins with the breath, and the breath begins here. The Chinese call it the Dantian. Indians call it the Hara. The chakra system has the base chakras sit in this lower belly. And I believe that the soul that's riding through our voices is emanating from this deep part of our bellies, so that everything starts with the belly. So that when we're breathing in here, and then we're going to do this movement exercise, I'm going to demonstrate it. And on and on and on. It's a meditative breathing. When I learned to do this convex concave, I've been gigging for years, but I added a whole other third to my breathing. My breath just expanded. And to finish off, um, it's the fourth, which I was telling you about, the optic muscles here. And really, you need to be able to get this belly breathing before you can really get people to release. There's a lot of stuff around face, persona, looking beautiful, being caught off guard if someone sees through you. And it's all in this area of the face, and the perfect, And it, so often I've worked with people going up into this area, and I'm seeing that, and they're watching me. They're watching me because they can't let this go. It's the ultimate surrender. You have to just let go and trust nobody's going to stab you in the back, or actually front. And talking about vulnerability, it's also, it's an offering up and a releasing and an opening of the most vulnerable part of our body, this part here in our throat. And what it entails is the inside of the mouth, the pharynx, the roof of the mouth is raising up, but it's also widening, and the back of the throat is widening as well. So that one of the mistakes I did when I first started working with this is that I got people to be collapsing here. It's not collapsing, but it's just, so let's just make a few faces. So I just want you to go, ha, ha, ha. Yeah, it has to start with the breath. So I call it forward resonance. It's different from which is this nasality. This is ah, ah. Yeah. Oh, do unmute yourself. I've got to hear this. Let's have a listen to this. Ah. Lift it. Fantastic. Over the ears. Yeah. It's kind of like the two timbres, I think, where we have to really let them surrender. It's the one where we go right out of past our capacity to articulate anything, and we have to be gormless. The trouble I have getting people to just be gormless, I can't tell you. They all cannot competently do that. It's like, it's letting go of the ego. It's letting go of all those things that packed us up tight and constricted and contracted us. And that the yawn and that, oh, don't. When talking about image, I use the image of a wounded bear, coming up to go, obviously where the deep sobs come from in us. And then when you go, so the pinnacle of the forward resonance that we've just done is on it's on this movement cycle, so that you'll hear with the lowest, I have to finish here. And again, you see, you have to stop the eye line, and you have to submit and take a risk, and then let that sound go up to the stars. then you bring the stars into your heart. And then you siphon it through your power and your potency of the solar plexus. And then you yawn and you release the perineum and you allow the energy to go into the ground. You breathe it back and you come up from the belly. And you breathe in. If you hang on a high note, try and stay with that note, because you don't want to be changing notes. You just want to be changing the reconfiguration of your larynx, which is allowing these different resonances. So if we go high, still works. Two more. One more. And hang there. Feel the breath in your back, along the spine. Feel the weight of your head. Feel the movement of your belly as you breathe in and out. Letting your back widen. Feel your heels on the ground. And then we're just going to very gently pull the belly towards your spine and start to uncurl slowly to standing. Pause. Let go again. And pull the belly up. And let go. And slowly come up. Roll shoulders. Cool. So pop stuff in the chat quickly. We've just got a couple of minutes to turn around, or a quick saying how that was. How was that? Did that work for you? Did you connect with that? Yeah. Great. You know, people ask me, you're not going to ask me to sing like that, are you? No, when I say no, you know, it's like we have more choice. You know, instead of going, I had a dream. I don't know, I'm exaggerating. But then you can take, I had a dream. You could get really, you know, West Side Story with it. It gives you choice. And what happens also, great thing about that is that when you, thank you, lovely, lovely little bits, thanks. It's like a guitar. You know, if you haven't played a guitar for a while, the wood gets a bit dead because it hasn't had any vibration. And it's the same thing with the nasal bones, that once you can get this mask off and feel this liberation of I and breath and high, it is fantastic. And what it does is that it's your voice starts to keep some of that upper harmonics that you've ignited by going into that forward resonance and opening up the breath. And so your voice becomes more clear and articulate. And then we're into presence, which is a whole other workshop. Thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure. Great. Cool. Lovely.